Miranda Khan. President Trump formally endorses Roy Moore for Senate. The White House says Trump spoke with Moore by the phone. Moore's campaign says the president called him a fighter and expressed his eagerness for Moore to get to Washington. Now, earlier today, he tweeted this: Democrats' refusal to give even one vote for massive tax cuts is why we need Republican Roy Moore to win in Alabama. We need his vote on stopping crime, illegal immigration, border wall, military, pro-life, VA, judges, Second Amendment, and more. No to Jones, a Pelosi Schumer puppet. Trump then followed up tweeting that putting Doug Jones in office would hurt the Republican agenda of low taxes, being tough on crime, and being strong on the military and borders. And the president's remarks, well, they may be helping a little bit. A new CBS poll shows Moore is leading Jones among likely voters by 6 points, 49 to 43%. The poll also found that the overwhelming majority of Alabama Republicans, 71%, say they do not believe the sexual misconduct allegations levied against Moore. And that's where I want to welcome in our panel. Joining us from Washington, we have conservative commentator and town hall columnist Erich Reimer. We're also pleased to have with us Democratic strategist. He's also a former Obama regional campaign director, Robin Byro. Thank you, gentlemen. Good to see you.
Great to be here.
All right, let's start with you, Robin. What has changed with the president there? Because before he was kind of, no, I'm not going to campaign. He was a little wish-washy, and then all of a sudden we go from a few tweets, a few comments to, that's it. I am fully going to support you and endorse Roy Moore. What changed?
Yeah, this vote over the weekend, I think it was such a nail-biter for him. It was his first major legislative win, so we'll give him that. But he knows the numbers, and at the end of the day, it's a numbers game. It comes down to partisan politics, and frankly, partisan politics for him obviously beats moral conviction. So he's more interested in pushing forth this legislative agenda from the GOP than he is concerned about any allegations against Roy Moore, because he needs those votes, frankly. I really have to say that I admire voters, though, who say that they vote their conscience, not just against around party lines. And I hope and pray that that is the case on this election day.
Sounded a little bit like Paul Ryan right there. Okay, going to you, Erich. Is this a wise move for the president to make?
I mean, I think the fact of the matter is, it's very difficult to litigate allegations like this in the public square, and so, I mean, I think the president is definitely making a pretty bold and perhaps risky move by doing so. I mean, I think the president, as has been mentioned in news reports, sees a lot of similarities between Roy Moore's allegations and his Access Hollywood allegations last year. And see, the problem with these allegations is that it's tough enough to litigate things like this in a courtroom, but it's even tougher to do so in the media, where we're under such a time crunched a few weeks before the election. And I mean, I think in the end, we'll have to take it one step at a time.
But Erich, let me put it this way. Let me put it this way. Would you do that? Would you formally endorse Moore?
I mean, given the risks at the moment, I probably would not do so. I mean, I certainly get the dilemma that many Republicans are facing in terms of a very narrow majority in the Senate and wanting to get legislative achievements done. But on the other hand, these allegations are not only are many of them kind of credible, but are also very, very disturbing. And so I think it's a difficult situation. And the president, has made his choice on the matter. I mean, personally, I probably would have made a very, very different choice. But I think we'll have to see what happens next week when voters go to the polls.
All righty. Well, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell appears to be changing his tune as well when it comes to Moore and whether or not he should be in the Senate. Here's what he has to say now.
I think we're going to let the people of Alabama decide a week from Tuesday who they want to send to the Senate, and then we'll address the matter appropriately.
Despite those remarks, Moore responded on Twitter, not necessarily positively at all. In fact, quite on the contrary, he said the people of Alabama have rejected McConnell twice, and on December 12th, they'll do it again. Previously, McConnell has called for Moore to step aside, saying that he believes the women who have accused Moore of sexual misconduct. Robin, going back to you. So what happened to McConnell? Why did he all of a sudden decide to change his mind? I mean, he did talk about, if he does make it into office, we're going to conduct some kind of ethics investigation.
And they don't want that. That's going to unveil so many different nuances, and that's just going to be bad, period, for the Republican Party. I think Mitch is doing this preemptively, and I honestly feel that he's having a moment of conscience here. But like he said, ultimately, this really will be up to the voters of Alabama. It's a little disturbing to me to hear that 71% of them don't believe these allegations. I think this goes back to Donald Trump constantly saying that anything that he dislikes is basically fake news. So I think that a lot of the times when these people hear stories like this, they just immediately chalk it off as, well, I don't like that, so I'm just going to say that that's fake news. And they're out to get my guy. That's really what I believe is the case, but I really do hope that these voters just vote on conscience. And Doug Jones is a very good conservative Democrat. So I hope that they will consider him. There's also a write-in candidate who's he's a retired Marine colonel. And, that might peel away some votes, probably from Roy Moore. So, I just want the people to get out and truly vote their conscience, not just vote across these party lines. I think it's important in this day and age. So
you mentioned, Robin, that you're surprised. I believe it was 70% of people in Alabama don't necessarily believe these allegations, but we are a country that, we're supposed to presume that people are innocent until proven guilty. And both of you have said that's very difficult to do. So, Erich, are you surprised by those numbers?
I mean, not really. I think GOP voters have been used to a while for a lot of especially I feel like during the 2016 election cycle, voters, especially GOP voters, were subject to so much misinformation from the mainstream media that they have an inherent distrust. And so I don't think it's surprising at all.
Erich Reimer, I hate to interrupt right now, but the president is speaking live, so we're going to try to go to that right now in Utah.
All right.
Oh, we don't have it yet. I'm so sorry, Erich. I interrupted you. I was being told the president is getting ready to speak. As soon as we're able to establish that connection, we will go to that live. My apologies, Erich. Continue.
Oh, no worries at all. I mean, I think it just shows how divided our discourse is when we have Republican voters who simply distrust a lot of mainstream media reports. And we saw the ABC News report how misinformation from the mainstream media can really lower people's trust of reporting. And so I think it's no surprise at all that Alabama GOP voters who have seen tons of misreports about President Trump over the past year are now distrusting this one as well. And so, I mean, I think it's a very disappointing situation because, the allegations are, in many cases, quite credible and very...
Thank you.
I apologize. I think we're still working on establishing that audio. You mentioned Trump, you'll hear Trump. There you go. Do we have the president right now? We do. Okay. Erich, Robin, thanks so much for your time today. Pleasure to have you. We're now going to go to the president who is speaking live in Utah. Let's go to that right now.
Truly believes in protecting America. He is liberty and law and patriotism and pride all across this great land. Thank you to the wonderful people of Utah. May God bless you, and may God bless America. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. You have been listening to the president there speaking live in Salt Lake City, Utah, where he announced a pretty historic rollback of two national monuments, the Bears Ears National Monument and again, the Grand Staircase Escalante National Monument, both who were designated by Democratic presidents. Grand Staircase Escalante was designated by President Bill Clinton back in 1996. Bear Ears National Monument was actually designated by President Barack Obama. That was about a year ago. Still standing by, we have Erich Reimer standing by with us, who's been listening to the president speak. I want to get your reaction to what the president had to say. What does this proclamation mean?
quite a detailed federal law concerning national monuments. I think the real elephant in the room going on with the president's visit to Utah and his speech was the prospect of Mitt Romney running for Utah Senate in 2018. And I think that's a big motivator, not only behind the president visiting Utah in person, but also him initiating this act. He wants to try to increase his approval in Utah specifically. After all, this is a state where Evan McMullen got over 20% of the popular vote in 2016, and where Mitt Romney right now is polling very well against Senator Orrin Hatch. And I think President Trump is very worried by the prospect of Mitt Romney in the Senate. And so I think there's a lot of political motivations going on behind the scenes for this. And I think, I think the policy is just kind of like the surface level manifestation of it.
So, Eric, if I'm hearing you correctly, and just for our audience who's not aware of that, supposedly there's been a couple reports out there that the president is urging Senator Orrin Hatch to run again. He is, I believe, one of the longest serving senators ever. He is going to be 83, I believe, and there's talk that he may retire, and that if he did, Mitt Romney would take over. So that's what you're referring to. I just find it interesting. So, you know, there are headlines everywhere, huge rollback of national monuments. Environmentalists, Democrats all up in arms over this, some saying they don't think the president can actually do this. But you're talking about Mitt Romney and Orrin Hatch. So you think this is really not the issue?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think, of course, you know, the administration has some environmental policy concerns, but I think they're just so, I mean, it's like, why now and why at this time? 2018 is already in full swing, and especially the primary cycle. And right now, there's news reports everywhere that Mitt Romney is seriously preparing a possible Senate campaign. And I mean, Senator Orrin Hatch is definitely a distinguished public servant. I mean, he's been senator from Utah for over 30 years or so. And I think he's not a, Trump, loyalist per se, but he's definitely, supports generally the administration's prerogatives, and unlike Mitt Romney, would not really be a vocal critic of the president while in office. And so I think there certainly are environmental concerns going around as well. But I think the timing of this visit, the fact that the visit is in person, the fact that during President Trump's speech, he talked about Senator Orrin Hatch, Senator Mike Lee, et cetera, and about what his administration is doing for the people of Utah. It really shows, I think, the political maneuvering going on, because I think if Mitt Romney were a senator, it would definitely be very interesting how that would take place, and be very unpredictable.
That's a good way of describing it. Interesting. Yeah. Yes, I believe it would be. I want to kind of switch gears a little bit. Before the president left for Salt Lake City, Utah, he spoke with reporters right before leaving about his thoughts about Michael Flynn, who, as you know, his former national security advisor, had a plea deal and admitted to lying to the FBI about his contacts with Russians. Here is what the president said right before that flight.
Well, I feel badly for General Flynn. I feel very badly. He's led a very strong life, and I feel very badly, John. I will say this. Hillary Clinton lied many times to the FBI. Nothing happened to her. Flynn lied, and they destroyed his life. I think it's a shame.
The president also basically called it a double standard. Eric, do you think it's a double standard? Does the president bring up a good point?
I mean, in some ways, I remember during General Flynn's RNC speech last summer, he said if he had been conducted even a tenth of what Hillary Clinton did, he would have been locked behind bars. And ironically, now a year later, it seems that's the case. I mean, of course, I think General Flynn has served this country honorably for over 3 decades, but it's also disappointing how he did lie to the FBI, which is a very serious crime, a very serious piece of damage.
But why did he do it, though? Here's the big question, because depending on who you're watching, when you're tuning into news or whatever, it's a huge deal. It's the end of the world. Mm-hmm. They're going to take on the entire Trump administration. This is just the beginning of what's going to be the end, the demise. And then you turn on some others and they're like, yeah, this is really no big deal. If that's the worst he got him on was lying for something that he really didn't have to lie about, what's the big deal? So let me ask you, what does this plea deal really mean? 30 seconds, sir.
I mean, I think it shows two things. I think firstly, it shows General Flynn has some remorse, but I think more importantly, it shows that General Flynn has some knowledge that is very useful to a Robert Mueller, because as a prosecutor, one would not accept a plea deal in a multi-pronged investigation like this unless the person had something very useful to the prosecutor. And so I think we'll really have to see where things go from here, because, I mean, this is a very uncertain development now that Michael Flynn is cooperating with Robert Mueller.
Erich Reimer, thanks so much for your time today. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
Hope to have you back on again. So there you heard Erich say that he thinks it's a big deal in order for the special counsel to reach an agreement with Flynn. But some people have also questioned, saying, well, if he lied, it kind of makes him a horrible witness and undermines his credibility. What do you think? Go to newsmaxtv.com and share your thoughts. Still more to come.